to News Central TV. I am Judith at TV. The headlines. Nigerian lawmakers consider regulating crypto transactions. Edo State House Assembly serves Deputy Governor Shuaib impeachment notice. World Food Programme warns that Sudan unrest may spark largest hunger crisis. And now the details. We begin in West Africa, Nigeria, where the Edo State House of Assembly on Wednesday commenced impeachment proceedings against Deputy Governor Philip Shuaib. The majority leader, Charity Oburegwan, who announced the impeachment notice during plenary, said the petition dated March 5th was signed by 21 of the 24 members against the deputy governor. He also said the petition was based on two grounds: perjury and revealing of government secrets. Speaker of the House, Blessing Ababuba, who acknowledged receipt of the petition, directed the clerk of the House, Yahaya Omugwan, to serve Shuaib the impeachment notice. Agba Bako also gave the deputy governor 7 days to respond to the notice of impeachment.
And 2A of the Constitution of the Federal Republic, to the effect that the deputy governor of Edo State, Right Honorable Philip Shuaib, show.
Still with politics, the chairman of the All Progressives Congress in Ekiti State, Paul Omotoso, is dead. It was gathered from family members that the Imesi-Ekiti born politician and lawyer died in the early hours of Wednesday after a brief illness. Omotoso, who was said to be active and participated in a series of political meetings early in the week, was said to have complained about his health on Tuesday, which made him to be rushed to a government hospital in the state capital, where he later died. It will be recalled that the late APC chairman was kidnapped in July 2023 by gunmen and was released after 5 days in the den of the gunmen. Away from that, but staying in Nigeria, the House of Representatives, through a motion, resolved to investigate national security implications of cryptocurrency and other digital asset transactions. The House is also to investigate the current status of the e-Naira on the global cryptocurrency platform, the cost incurred, processes undertaken, and statutory compliance in creating the digital currency. On Monday, the House Committee on Financial Crimes resolved to issue warrant of arrest against executives of cryptocurrency platform Binance for failing to appear before it for an investigation. Chairman of the committee, Ginger Onwosibe, said the warrant of arrest is to compel the executives to appear before lawmakers to answer questions on allegations of terrorism, funding, and financial crimes. And still with cryptocurrency and the state of Binance have now announced plans to discontinue all services related to the Nigerian Naira. Now, Binance, a cryptocurrency exchange platform, was accused of exploiting the Nigerian currency Naira, leading to its free fall in value. The company is, in addition, facing allegations of terrorism financing, money laundering, and tax evasion, among others. The company, in a statement on Tuesday, advised users to withdraw Nigerian Naira, trade their Nigerian Naira assets, or convert Nigerian Naira into crypto. It was earlier reported that the federal government detained at least 2 senior executives of Binance. The arrest came amidst efforts by the government to rein in speculation on the Naira by cracking down on cryptocurrency exchanges. And now to security. Nigeria's Minister of Defense, Mohammed Badaru, says fewer than 7 top terrorist commanders were killed by security forces in the last few months. The minister made this known during a tour of the Armed Forces Command and Staff College in Jaji, Kaduna State. He also said there is improvement in the fight against insurgency and banditry. Badaru added that the military is deploying technology for surveillance and tracing to find the terrorists and deal with them decisively, noting that bandits take advantage of the abuse, or rather absence, of more boots in every corner of the country to launch pockets of attacks. He, however, said the military is aggressively following bandits up to flush them out from their enclaves. Earlier, Ahmed Musa Husseini, public affairs commentator, spoke to us on this development.
Terror leaders is an important, actually, achievement for our security agencies, in the sense that it exacts a price on these criminals. By impressing upon them that, sooner or later, the long arm of Nigerian justice is going to catch up with them. But from a security perspective, it does not always translate to a decline in terror activity, because when terror leaders are killed, actually some other, middle ranking or senior ranking guys actually step in to fill that vacuum. And sometimes they tend to be even more vicious than actually the leaders that they are replacing. So it does not only translate into a decline in criminal activity or terror activity, but it is actually a huge victory on our security agencies in terms of exacting costs and ensuring accountability on terror leaders, that they are not going to go away with their crimes, that the Nigerian military has the capability to actually pursue them and eliminate them wherever they are.
The Nigeria Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has intercepted 21 food trucks heading to neighboring countries. Announcing the seizure in a statement on its X handle on Tuesday, the anti-graft agency said the items were heading towards Chad Republic, Central African Republic, and Cameroon. It said the seizure was made by operatives of the EFCC Maiduguri Zonal Command. The statement added that the trucks were intercepted in a sting operation at major exit routes along Kalabiri and Gumbura Ngala and Bama roads in Borno State. The looting of a government warehouse containing grains in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, has continued to generate reactions. Some residents in the capital who spoke to News Central say the incident paints a bleak picture on expectations for the future, adding that if nothing is done to address the current hardship, citizens should prepare for the worst. Our correspondent Marvelous Obumenu tells us more.
The legislative business of the day commenced with the House first considering petitions laid before it and motions of urgent national importance. Then followed the entrance of relevant stakeholders in Nigeria's agricultural sector for a third dialogue on food production and resolving the nation's hunger crisis.
Collective effort must focus on addressing both demand and supply factors, along with the persistent challenge of food price inflation, through thorough analysis.
With the biting economy, scarcity of food due to insecurity, and high cost of food items in the market, many say surviving in Nigeria today is a miracle. While those who belong to the working class may not feel the bite, others are resorting to self-help. An example is the recent looting of a government warehouse in Nigeria's capital, Abuja.
If the government does not do the needful, if you don't, provide security for lives and property of the people in the villages, in the communities, even around the FCT, for people to farm in confidence and in safety, there's more hunger brewing and there's more looting going to happen. But I do hope it doesn't get out of hand.
It's not time for promises, it's time for action. Now we are seeing attacking warehouses, attacking lorries carrying food and all of that. That is just the beginning. Because when desperate people are pushed to the wall, they don't have any other thing but to push back. So what we are seeing is a pushback on the people. People are hungry. People are losing their jobs every day. The economy is not getting better. So what do you expect people to do?
These are abnormal times. So anything I see, anything you see now, anybody who acts abnormally, you somehow will not want to blame the person, because the person is hungry. The person is not thinking with his right senses. And if the government doesn't do anything to arrest what is going on right now, I think worse will happen.
Although the actions of the looters are inexcusable, some still blame government, saying citizens can no longer bear the hunger being witnessed.
The government needs to wake up. It's almost a year gone into this administration, and nothing is on ground to show that there is every seriousness to arrest, an impending doom in terms of hunger and deprivation. A country that is as endowed, right, in every wise, has to go through this mess.
The looting in the Federal Capital Territory recently is a clear indication that there is hunger in the land. People are becoming increasingly desperate. This is not a doomsday prophecy, but if the government fails to address the issue of hunger, like many say, the Gwagwa burgling could be a foretaste of what may happen soon. The signs are not good. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Oboman.
A senior advocate of Nigeria, Ebonlu Adegboruwa, says the looting of a government warehouse in Abuja on Sunday was a direct reflection of the level of hardship the majority of Nigerians battling currently. The lawyer said Abuja residents who looted food items used it to pass a message to President Bola Tinubu about the economic policies of President Bola Tinubu's administration. Concerned citizens are calling on the government to make decisions that will turn the tide of hardship faced by Nigerians. To discuss this, we're joined by public affairs analyst Jide Ojo. Jide, lovely to have you join us today this afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's my pleasure.
So, this is an obvious question to begin with, but hopefully this will help make sense of what we're seeing on the ground. How does the looting of a government warehouse in Abuja connect to the current level of hardship faced by Nigerians?
As reflected by Ebonlu Adegboruwa, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and the backgrounder report by Marvelous Oboman, it's a foretaste of what may likely happen if care is not taken. Incidentally, I read for the Punch newspaper, and this is the issue I weigh in on in my column in the Punch of today, which you can read both online and in print. The point, the message is that when someone is hungry, he is angry. When he is angry, he can misbehave. And in my column in the Punch, I actually did cite even biblical passages where the disciples of David and the disciples of Jesus Christ have to, eat what is not theirs, just because they want to quell their hunger pangs. And of course, what happened in Dede or Gwagwa, as you may want to put it, it's not the first time this is happening. It happened in 2020 during the SARS protest in October, where people raided warehouses, across the country. So it's just a wake-up call for us as a government to do the needful to quell people's hunger and anger. Recall that last week, the NLC embarked on hunger protest, and people are now putting actions to words. They are not just protesting with their mouths, they are also protesting with their actions. And it's not only what happened in Abuja. Recall that in a number of places, trucks carrying food items have been waylaid or, looted if they are seen to be carrying foodstuffs. So the sign is ominous, and government at all levels, not just federal government, not just Tinubu, government at all levels, both at the federal, state, and local government, needs to wake up and try to mitigate these, hunger pangs that people of Nigeria are facing.
Jide, you talked about this looting happening. We've seen it across the states. But this particular situation we're addressing happened at the seat of power, and that is the capital, Abuja, in Nigeria here. What is the significance of Abuja residents looting food items as a means of, conveying a message to President Bola Tinubu about the economic policies of his administration?
as I said in my earlier remark, it's just a wake-up, it's a call to action for President Tinubu to know that under his nose, people are hungry and they are angry with his administration, and he needs to do something. And in my column in the Punch of today, I actually articulated a number of promises that the federal government has made, including what the Lagos State government and Nigerian Customs Service have been able to do. Also in this column of mine, I also articulated the promise by the Minister of Agriculture and National and Food Security that this week we will start seeing the release of 42,000 metric tons of grains and about 52,000 grains of metric tons of rice being released into the public. And this has to be done expeditiously to calm frayed nerves. Recall that in July, about July 14, 2023, the President Tinubu actually declared state of emergency on food insecurity. If you recall, at that time, it was the special advisor to the President on Communications, Dele Alake, before he was made the minister, that conveyed the President's desire to declare state of emergency on food insecurity. But it's been some time since July. July to date is about 7-8 months, and people want to see significant improvement in the significant reduction in the prices of food items. And all those noble promises that were made, not just in terms of declaring food, the state of emergency in food insecurity, also the commitment made by the President in his July 31, 2023 broadcast, the one he made in October to Nigeria Labour Congress, as well as the one he made on January 1. In all of these presidential speeches, he has made certain commitments to bring down the price of food. But I just want to highlight that, it's not just federal government we should tax. You need to also tax the state government. There are 36 of them that are also collecting federal allocation. And if Lagos State can say that it will be feeding 1,000 people across all the local governments in the state and also have the Sunday market in 42 markets across the state, why shouldn't other governors also copy that or do something similar? We need to take this down to the grassroots. Local government needs to be financially empowered to also help take some critical number of the hunger pangs by supporting them, providing them, if you have to do food stamp or you want to do food voucher or you have to open kitchen soup or whatever you want to do, just do something to ameliorate people's suffering. And it's not just limited to government at all levels. Even at individual level, there are billionaires amongst us. There are millionaires in dollars amongst us. There are private organizations, churches, worship centers, and religious centers. They all have to key in at this critical point because as it has started with the looting of warehouses, when warehouses are no longer there to loot, they might move to supermarkets, they might move to even open markets and start looting. So we need to prevent the descent into anarchy. And this also is a call to action by security agencies. There is nothing that prevents Nigerian Army, Nigerian Police, DSS, the civil defense from having their own farms. After all, it's not just about physical security. It's also about food security. Just imagine if Nigerian Army has hectares of farmlands across the country that is well secured, that bandits cannot even raid. You imagine the police having similar number, thousands of acres that are well policed, well protected from bandits, and they can also help with the food supply chain. So it's a call to action, not just for government, as in federal, state, or local government, but security agencies can also do their own. If lands are made available to them, I want to doubt those criminal elements that will go and be demanding access fee or harvest fee from Nigerian police or Nigerian Army if they have a farmland which they are cultivating. Even if it's just 1,000 of them that can be deployed into farming and the farm is well protected, there are grains we can plant within 90 days, they can harvest, and that will help us. And in the immediate period, we can also open our borders and bring in some food supplies from abroad
All right.
pending the time that the one we intend to plant will germinate and be due for harvest.
Jide, thank you so much for coming, and we appreciate you for doing this with us.
Always a pleasure.
And that was
Jide.
And that was Jide Ojo, our public affairs analyst there, who was giving us some recommendations and more decisions that need to be made from the federal government on alleviating the hardship faced by the majority of Nigerians. We'll take a short break. We'll be back after this. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back. The recent visit by Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu to Qatar has brought much expectations from the Nigerian business community. While Nigeria and Qatar have had their own fair share of trade in the last few years, citizens will be hoping that President Tinubu's visit will yield inflow of direct foreign investments to Nigeria. Amadine Uyi gives us an overview of events that played out in the Gulf state of Qatar.
My responsibility this afternoon is to tell you, the Qataris, that Nigerians are your friends. Open for business. Open for honest partnership.
A loud and bold statement from Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu during his recent visit to the Gulf state of Qatar. With Qatar having the fourth highest gross domestic product per capita in the world, ranking 47 in the Human Development Index worldwide and taking the number 3 spot in the Arab world, Qatar can be regarded as a major economic power in the Middle East. Thus, the visit by Nigeria's president to Qatar came with much expectations. Qatar is rated as a high-income economy. It has the third largest reserves of oil and gas in the world. It is also the largest exporter of liquefied natural gas in the world. The presidential team started with a business forum. We saw the signing of historic agreements between both nations.
The business forum, as you know, is quite significant because it's not just to introduce the businessmen, but it's for us to forge relationships and partnerships for investment opportunities, for progress, for cooperation, for cultural interchange, and for every other thing that makes us human.
Economic relations motivate mutual investment so as to benefit us all and achieve the aspirations of both friendly countries of development and prosperity. This is an important platform to discuss various economic areas of common interest and to review the different capabilities and different trade, investment, and economic sectors in both Qatari and Nigerian markets, as well as supporting and encouraging the business sector in both countries to develop and diversify partnerships and open new horizons of cooperation to support development efforts.
The president also during a bilateral meeting assured the business community in Qatar that Nigeria remains the go-to investment destination.
To assure you that the country as a whole, of over 240 million people, is ready and anxious to welcome you and your investment with open arms and open mind, to assure you that your investment is safe in our hands.
With Nigeria and Qatar having its own fair share of trade in the last few years, it is hoped that the agreements reached will herald a new era of cooperation by both countries, creating business opportunities for citizens. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
The Nigeria Immigration Service and its Ghanaian counterpart have called for more policies that will give women the opportunity to join the service and contribute their quota to national development. This was during a gender sensitization workshop organized by the International Center for Migration Policy Development held in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Marvelous Obumenu reports.
In this room are representatives of the Nigerian and Ghanaian Immigration Service with developmental partners gathered to critically look at gender policies already in place in the service and how to strengthen them. The Nigeria Immigration Service received commendation for mainstreaming gender in its operations and giving women the opportunity to take up leadership positions in the service.
I think I rate Nigeria very high because, number one, Nigeria Immigration Service has recognized that there needs to be a much more move towards a balanced service, and there are measures already being taken for that to happen.
ICMPD is trying to support the Nigerian government through the Nigerian Immigration Service to really look into issues of women empowerment, the role of women in the immigration service, gender mainstreaming, and developing SOPs and policies that can actually empower female officers in the organization.
Some of the stakeholders present, while admitting that the Nigeria and Ghana immigration services have done well in achieving women inclusion, however, called for more opportunities for women.
If we really, respect the affirmative action of at least a minimum of 35%, perhaps we can even, state it. We can even state it in our recruitment, advertisements that women come, we want you. I do not think that we can ever reach a place of, parity.
It's just appropriate that both male and female cooperate, coexist together and work well. In a working environment, equal opportunities to be given to all is essential. And I believe if Ghana and Nigeria are pushing the agenda, making sure that this issue of mainstream gender is being pushed forward and making sure both gender, male and female, are given equal opportunities, I think it's appropriate.
Beyond gender mainstreaming, the workshop also looked at illegal migration amongst women in the African sub-region. Stakeholders present called for the need to end this trend by training personnel with relevant skills for operations on the field. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Obomana.
News Central provides a coverage of the funeral service held for Herbert Wigwe, the former CEO of Access Holdings, as well as his wife and son. The sober event was characterized by heartfelt tributes honoring the lives and accomplishments of the deceased. In his report, Ni Omoni details the activities of the funeral service so far and celebrates the impact of Herbert Wigwe and his family.
Day one of the funeral service celebrated the distinguished professional career of Herbert Wigwe. The hall was filled with friends, family, colleagues, and dignitaries from Nigeria and abroad, reflecting the significance of the loss. It was a time for profound reflection, as many struggled to retain their composure while recounting their interactions with the deceased.
He was a bold and hard-working achiever in the bank.
One thing I can say is Herbert is a risk taker.
If Herbert is in your corner, you can go to sleep.
Herbert and his wife are survived by 4 children, Tochi, David, Anna, Ukachi, in addition to his 8 parents and siblings. Thank you very much.
Day 2 honored Herbert's wife, Chizoba, and son, Chizi. It proved another emotional roller coaster.
Chizi was a beacon in our family, a jester, a prankster, a financial wizard, an extrovert, overflowing with emotion, yet fiercely competitive.
God indeed had a plan. And that is the faith, that is what gives me strength, knowing that it was the will of God, as difficult as this would be for all of us.
Numerous commitments were made to continue advancing the ideals and goals that defined Herbert Wigwe's work.
And the only thing he asked me was would I sponsor some ignorant students? And I made him that promise that I would.
To immortalize my beloved friend, my brother and mentee, I have actually decided to name our major refinery and petrochemical road. Out of the 120 kilometers, the biggest road will be now named Herbert Wigwe.
We will live to support the family, to support Tuche, David, Hannah, and the great fearless Ukachi.
His legacy will continue to grow, and we will make him proud.
You don't know what that means.
His passing raises important questions about Nigeria's path forward. Without his expertise and leadership, what will the future hold?
He's not the kind of person you can replace. His vision was incredible.
Those of us who also started our own businesses about the same time he and I branched off, they were our beacon. We followed them.
The nation and Africa has lost a gem. Or we take comfort and solace in the fact that he lived a great life.
We do hope that there will be Nigerians who will step into his shoes. The work he's done, the vision he had, the lives he touched will take us a long, long time to replace.
Following a week-long remembrance, final burial rites will be held in his hometown, Isiokpo River State, allowing his community to pay their respects. In Lagos for News Central, Ni Omani.
Our hearts go out with the family as they mourn this tragedy and loss. This is News Central. Stay with us. We'll be back after this. We'll continue with the news as we head on to Zimbabwe, where on Monday the United States imposed sanctions on this country's president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, and other senior authorities, replacing a broad two-decade-old pressure campaign with targeted action, citing a campaign of human rights violations and corruption. The United States say it will restrict any U.S.-based property and prohibit sanctioned Zimbabweans from traveling to the nation unofficially. According to its Deputy Treasury Secretary, Wale Adeyomu, the changes are meant to attack the people of Zimbabwe. More stories here still with the continent of Africa. Wazi, are you back? We move on as the World Food Programme has warned that the war in Sudan could trigger the world's largest hunger crisis unless fighting stops. More than 10 months of fighting between rival forces has left nearly 14,000 people dead, over 8 million displaced, and much of the country's population cut off and facing rising hunger. Many have been displaced multiple times. They arrived at transit camps with close to nothing, hungry and desperate for help. During a visit to a camp in neighboring South Sudan, WFP head Cindy McCain said the victims of the war have been forgotten. She also said aid agencies have to be given access to those facing emergency levels of hunger who were stranded in areas cut off by violence. We'll go on a short break. Stay with us. Earlier on the news, we told you about the United States imposed sanctions on Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa and other senior authorities, replacing a broad two-decade-old pressure campaign with targeted action. And now to give us more insight on this and to also discuss this in more details, we're joined by Wazi Somya. He is a Senior Research Development and Programs Coordinator at Southern African Liaison's Office. Well, it's good to have you back, Wazi. I'm sure you can hear me loud and clear now.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Let's get started, shall we? And let's start by what are the reasons for the U.S. to target the leadership in Zimbabwe with, these sanctions? And what factors or actions led to this particular decision by the United States?
So we must remember the sanctions that they're trying to remove currently. There are two national executive orders made by the President of the United States. One was in 2003, which was following the land grabs that happened in Zimbabwe under Robert Mugabe. And the second one was in 2008, which followed violence after elections when the Zimbabwean government under Robert Mugabe tried to clamp down. Obviously, the actors of the day, especially Robert Mugabe, is now dead, and therefore sanctions around his regime are now falling away. And therefore, they've implemented a new set of sanctions regime, which is specifically targeted at which they call smart sanctions, which is called the Magnitsky Global Sanctions Regime, which targets specifically people involved in the issues around human rights abuses within Zimbabwe, issues around illicit financial flows, especially corruption, and the theft of national resources and the selling it into the black market, as we've seen with Al Jazeera's report around the gold mafia. And another aspect is around the closing of the democratic space and human rights abuses. And if you look at the statements made by the U.S., especially the White House, it still recognizes the human rights abuses, the closing of the democratic space, but the new range of sanctions are specifically targeted to the new administration within Zimbabwe and making it more relevant to the current status quo within Zimbabwe.
Wazi, how significant are these sanctions on Zimbabwe's leadership in comparison to previous sanctions imposed on the country? And what impact do these revamped sanctions have on Zimbabwe's economy, particularly in terms of trade, investment, and even economic growth?
Now, these sanctions are specifically targeted. They're highly targeted. With the previous ones, were more broad range, specifically targeting businesses. With the current range of sanctions, they're targeting 11 individuals and 3 entities, especially involved in acts of corruption and closing of the democratic space within Zimbabwe. When the previous ones were specifically targeted at certain institutions, which a number of people will be introduced on a year-on-year basis. Now, these are not the holistic sanctions being removed. There's another set of sanctions called the Zadira sanctions, which are an act of Congress, which means America's legislative body needs to make a decision to remove these sanctions, which President Biden cannot do. Now, in order for that to happen, there has to be some form of consensus within Congress and the current status quo within American politics. We do not see that happening within this year or in the lead up towards the elections in the United States in November later on this year.
Right. Luwazi, in promoting human rights improvements in Zimbabwe, how effective have these sanctions been? And what are the expectations for these new sanctions in terms of addressing human rights issues?
Their theory behind sanctions is to placing sufficient pressure on people to change their behavior. And we have seen in Zimbabwe over the last 20 to 30 years, sanctions have not really been effective, especially, you've seen in Russia, Ukraine, where sanctions have not been effective in situations such as North Korea, for example, where sanctions have not been effective in changing the behavior of actors in the international system. However, they have been effective when situations where the international community combines and joins on a single call concerning sanctions. So we've seen the similar situations concerning sanctions against apartheid South Africa back in the 1960s until the 1990s, where the international communities are combined together and place sufficient pressure for the government of South Africa to change. What we have seen within Zimbabwe, there has not been sufficient broader consensus and sufficient international pressure to change the behavior of the Zimbabwean government, and that will require a broader analysis and broader consensus building that will happen within SADC, within the African continent, and within the international community. But so far, the human rights situation, the closing of the democratic space, the intolerance against opposition, the jailing of people with critical views will continue to be perpetuated within Zimbabwe until a sufficient international pressure brings bear towards the Mnangagwa regime.
And that was Luwazi Somya there. He's a Senior Research Development and Programs Coordinator at Southern Africa Liaison Office, and he's talking to us about the sanctions from the United States on some Zimbabwean leaders, including the president. Luwazi, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you for doing this with us.
Thank you.
Ahead of the U.S. elections, Donald Trump has promised to take back America after dominating the Super Tuesday primary contest. Speaking at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida, the former president declared that it was a day he had been waiting for. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden largely sailed through the Democratic nominating contest. The results all but guarantee a repeat of the 2020 election. Both men appear poised to frame the election as an existential test for the future of the country as they head toward a rematch that will likely be just as heated as their last contest 4 years ago. Joining us now to give us a bit more on this story is our international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, good morning to you, or good afternoon?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Afia, break down for us which states were voting on Super Tuesday and who won what.
Well, yeah, Super Tuesday, a really significant day, one of the most important ones in the run-up to this election in November. On the Democratic side, US President Joe Biden won all the states that he was going for, apart from American Samoa. So he claimed victory in Alabama, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Iowa, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, and Virginia. Businessman Jason Palmer actually won in American Samoa. And on the Republican side, Donald Trump claimed huge victories in Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, and Virginia. The only state he didn't win, where Nikki Haley did win, was in Vermont. But we are hearing now that Nikki Haley will pull out of the race later on today and will give the Republican nomination over to President Donald Trump. So it looks like we are heading for a President Biden, President Trump rematch come November.
But despite Trump winning all but one of the states in Super Tuesday, it's not a clear-cut victory for him, is it?
It actually isn't, and that's down to a few factors. First of all, because Nikki Haley was actually taking quite a big proportion of the votes, 30%, 40% in some states where they were picking their nomination for the Republican Party. So she was getting quite a significant chunk of the votes. And that shows that there's still a lot of people that don't want to vote for Donald Trump. Also, didn't really want to vote for Nikki Haley either, but she is getting quite a good proportion of the votes. Whereas with President Biden and his Democratic nomination, he was getting sort of 70%, 80%, 90% of the Democratic vote. And also the Republican turnout was very, very low. Another indication that the party doesn't really want Nikki Haley or Donald Trump. So when it comes to people going to the polls for Trump, it's thought there's going to be low voter turnout on the Republican side, and that a lot of those voters actually are not going to vote for him. 40% of them perhaps would have voted for Nikki Haley. So it's not necessarily going to be as plain sailing as he would like it to be.
All eyes are watching the United States elections and Super Tuesday, and let's see if it's going to be a rematch or not. Afia, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you for doing this.
Thank you.
But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories that we took today. Nigerian lawmakers considers regulating crypto transactions. Edo State House Assembly have served the Deputy Governor Shuaibu an impeachment notice. And we told you that the World Food Programme has warned that Sudan unrest may speak largest hunger crisis yet. You can send your eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Make sure to follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can also watch News Central TV live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Judith at TV.